All right, the first question that just picked up is who named the time or the zodiacal time Pisces? The answer is Enki. As Nibiru approaches the sun, it should become visible to the naked eye as only as a bright point of light. That is correct. How many years out of the 3600 would Nibiru be visible from Earth? The observations reported in Assyria and Babylon for the previous time or last time it was here started between a century to 2 centuries before its perigee. The story of Enki that I translated from tablets. Where are those tablets now? Oh, they're all over various museums in England, at the Louvre, in Germany. Many are in Philadelphia, by the way. So they are all over. The sources for the book, Lost Book of Enki, were about 800 different texts and fragments and etc. In recent years, other Pluto-sized bodies have been discovered beyond the orbit of Pluto. Why didn't the Anunnaki tell the Sumerians about these bodies as well? I don't know. With such an extreme orbit, why isn't Nibiru a frozen planet, unable to sustain life? Well, that's really a very important question because it keeps being asked. And the answer can begin with saying, why aren't we on Earth frozen? If we go up, not just in a plane, but certainly in an orbiting spacecraft, just a few miles above the surface of the Earth, we'll be frozen to death. So why aren't we frozen to death on the planet here? Because of our atmosphere. It's the atmosphere that keeps the heat. Now, most planets, and there are many studies, including very recent ones in the journal Science and Nature, about Jupiter. Jupiter, as an example, not only has internal heat from radioactive and other elements in the planet, but actually emits more heat out into space than it ever receives from the sun. So if a planet has its own natural internal heat, as virtually all the planets have, the question is, does it have an atmosphere? If it doesn't have an atmosphere, life would not be possible. Everything would freeze. If it has an atmosphere, it creates like a hothouse effect, and this was really the reason why the Anunnaki came here, because they were losing their atmosphere, and without finding a way, which was with gold, to protect it, life would end on their planet. So this is a key question, and although I've given the answer in my books and at every possible occasion and meeting, etc., it's kept being asked, but it gives me an opportunity to give the reason and the explanation. Well, it's another question more or less in the same vein. In Israel, Well, this is not something I talked about today, but the question is, how long did the women in Israel, ancient Israel, cry for Tammuz, which was the name for the Sumerian god Dumuzi, who was killed, or his death was caused by his older half-brother Marduk. And it's a very interesting story because it was supposed the two clans tried to make peace by intermarriage, and the goddess Inanna, better known as Ishtar, was betrothed to Dumuzi, a son of Enki. I don't know for how long, but certainly the reference in the Bible is at the time of the prophet Jeremiah. So this is 6th or so century BC. After all the information you discover, do you believe in God? Well, if you can define God, I could answer that. It's a good question, but it's very complex to answer unless the question is developed. Is it just a history book? Religion? Yeah, he wants the topic. Or is religion just a history book lesson? Or is there any merit to any of them, to all religions? Well, religion, in the narrow sense, began like so many other things in Sumer, which was the worship of the Anunnaki, gods with a small g. And then it diversified to national gods and to clans. Those who followed Marduk, those who followed Sin, those who followed Enki. They were given Egyptian names. They let people do the miracles. They were called Quetzalcoatl. So religion, I think, can be separated at least into two parts, probably into more. One is the one of ritual. You do this, you don't eat that, etc., which just developed over the ages and doesn't really, is not basic to faith. And the other is faith, in believing that there is some higher entity, and this leads to the question of God. I do believe that there is a universal creator. If any religion teaches that, then it's a valid religion. Phobos appears artificial. Your comments on our moon. Oh, I should give comments on our moon. Is our moon artificial? No, our moon is not artificial. There's a whole part of the epic of creation. I skipped over it, but how the moon came to the celestial entity called in the text Kingu, how it became our moon. So it's not artificial. What do you think Anunnaki plans are for us on their return? Well, it depends who the leader now is, because the attitudes were different at the time of one of its nearing, when the great flood or deluge occurred. Enlil wanted to use the opportunity to wipe mankind off the face of the earth. Enki, who treated mankind more like his creations, because he and the goddess Ninhursag were involved in the genetic engineering, treated us more as, not us, but humans, as his creatures, his responsibility. So it all depends who is coming back now. If we go back to the events of the deluge, in the Bible, the reason is given that Yahweh, the biblical God, who was Yahweh, is another subject. I do have in my book, I think, Divine Encounters, a whole chapter about, it's titled God the Extraterrestrial. And if it strikes you as odd, then by definition, if he's not one of us, then he's an extraterrestrial. So the Bible says that Yahweh, the antagonistic deity, which in the Sumerian text is Enlil, said mankind turned out to be evil, and therefore it should be wiped out of the face of the earth. And if the Anunnaki come back, whoever they are, will they find evil upon the earth? And no doubt they will. So if these are the Enlilites who are coming back, they'll say, how about repeating the deluge? In the Akkadian text, the Babylonian version, the reason was that there were too many, not they were evil, but these creatures, the children of the Adam, there are too many of them. They fill up the earth. They are in our way, you know. They don't give us peace. So, are there too many of us on earth? Maybe. So, I don't know. I think the best way to find out is to be around when they come back. Are you training others to read the tablets? No, I have no time for that, but one can learn. It's not impossible. We have another half hour. Do you know from the interpretation of the tablets if Earth is the only planet they visited to mine for gold? Well, they definitely visited Mars, but if the question is limited to mining for gold, there's no text that I know of that says so. So we might be the only golden planet. Has anyone tested the black residue seen on the walls of the inside of the space platform? Well, some of the walls are blackened, but I don't know of anyone testing it. Maybe one should go back and do it. Yeah. When Enki was living on Earth, did he experience Nibiru's crossing? Many times. Do you feel that what's going on in Iraq is influenced by the knowledge of the eventual return of the Anunnaki? Well, there's a question full of landmines, and I'll risk it by saying yes.